You know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Blogger Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley. Today, we have the last of the guest lists for you. So, the 2020 Best of coverage is coming to a conclusion. First, we're going to hear from our good friend Adam Yoe, who is a contributor at No Echo, with his picks. Then we're going to hear from Ann Lepore of the Machine Shop Rocks, as she talks about a couple records she enjoyed this year. And then we'll end things on Dave Brown of One Band 5 Songs and Oklahoma Lefty with his massive top 10 of the year. Before we get to that, though, I left off a voicemail. So first I'm going to play a voicemail from Drew Clegg of Dry Socket. I'm sorry, Drew. I can't believe I forgot to include your voicemail on this episode. Blame Scott Hicks from Totally Slow. No, don't blame Scott.
Hello, your call cannot be taken at the moment, so please leave your message after the tone.
What's up, y'all? This is Drew from Dry Socket, or your least favorite propaganda enthusiast. 2021 was a pretty terrible year, mostly filled with terrible things, but I will list some really great records that came out this year in no particular order. Lurk, Around the Sun, was a new band for me, and boy did that record blow me away. Start to finish, it's fantastic. Yashira, Failed to Be, also new to me this year, also a fantastic record start to finish. Drip Fed from Austin, Texas, they're fantastic people. This record is insane. Turnstile, Glow On. I used to not like Turnstile, but now I'm a huge fan. I have to say that to hold myself accountable. Fiddlehead, Between the Richness, is also just phenomenal. A great band from Japan called the Forget Me Not. The record's called Deer. It is awesome, really fast melodic punk. Pocket Queen, Groove Theory Volume 1. Pocket Queen is drummer, and this record is just amazing start to finish as well. A good friend named Aeon put out a record called 1000 Knives of Wintertime. It is great synthwave stuff. iFlies put out Exigent Circumstances, which is a great heavy record. Full of Hell put out another phenomenal record called Garden of Burning Apparitions. Boris put out No, and that's also fantastic. Converge put out Blood Moon 1. As much as I love Converge, I wasn't hyped on this record at first until I listened to it, and boy, it is great. Third Face also put out Do It With a Smile. Local recommendations from our area. Rainmaking put out a self-titled EP that is unreal. Gilded Age put out an EP called Voices with a really great spin to it. Just go look it up yourself. Mike Capes put out In Spite Of, and Mike Capes is still one of my favorite rappers and fantastic. Big props to Mike Capes. And lastly, Dying Wish put out Fragments of a Bitter Memory, which has been really good to them, and they've been extremely successful to that. So shout out to all of them. Thank you for having me, and maybe next year we can talk about the new Dry Socket coming out. All right, have a wonderful year. Bye-bye.
I am joined here by Adam Yoe, a contributing writer for No Echo and multiple-time guest on the pod. Adam, how's it going?
What's up, Justin? How are you?
I'm good.
The only thing on my resume, multiple-time guest of Punk Lotto Pod.
What? 4, 5? I guess if you count these, you've probably done 2 of these?
Yeah, I think I've done 2. I think this will be 3, I believe.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
and then you've been on a couple times as guest and as co-host when Dylan was moving. Right. So co-host. We've had you on a bunch of times. So
yeah,
welcome
always
back.
Stoked to be back. Yeah, thanks.
So we're getting these everybody's takes on the best of the year, best of 2021. Weird year. I think that another weird year. I think we'll be saying that again at the end of next year. Yeah. I think it's just our life going forward. It's going to be a continuing series of weird years.
Basically, yeah.
But good year for music, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we finally got all of those albums that people were sitting on in 2020. Like, oh, I'll put this out when things get back to normal.
Yeah.
And they dropped them,
Which I think, too, that, 2020 was the year that, everybody got a record paid attention to more than they might have because of everybody was at home for a good chunk of the year.
True.
But now 2021 is it's just kind of like a continuation of we're still watching. We're still paying attention to what everybody's doing. There's still some really, really good records this year. I was looking at it and most of my all-time favorite bands released records this year. I was
that's cool.
How did this happen? Where my all-time, and then they were they're good records and they're not my favorite of the year, which is funny how that happened too. But
and let's not jinx this, Justin, but I don't know how you feel about their more recent output. Hot Water Music put out a good single. That's all I'm going to say.
They did.
That's all
they
I'm gonna
have
say.
A great song so far. So
Yep.
I'm actually really looking.
Me too.
There's a lot coming out. There's a new Superchunk record coming out next year.
Yes. Have you that single is amazing.
They're going in that kind of I don't know what you describe that sound. The last record was their punk record. So this is the one I guess they're doing a more the indie, there's some acoustic elements to it. So
yeah, there's a little bit of there's an indie jangle, kind of more power pop. I feel like the last one was super catchy hardcore almost. That was the most hardcore record they've ever put out.
Yeah. It was kind of a political record too, but not the type of political record that you're oh, this Rock Against Bush compilation sure hasn't aged well.
Ugh. I probably have one of those sitting around here somewhere.
Yeah. There was good stuff on them, but it's
sure.
I don't think the youths today are going to be connecting to songs about Condoleezza Rice.
I think about that every time I listen to that Against Me record.
Yeah.
I'm I don't think kids know who that is.
Right.
You know what I mean?
She kind of stepped out of the limelight for good whenever she
did. On the golf course somewhere.
Yeah. And I thought about that too. AJJ put out that record last year that was a Trump protest record that was recorded pre-COVID. So then it was just nobody cares about this anymore.
No.
But I think you got some picks here that are going to be viewed as timeless. So let's look at what you've picked for the best of 2021.
Yeah, let's do it.
What do you want to start with?
So this, I'll preface my number 10 with one that nearly made it. So every year I kind of always ask myself, will this be the year that I finally understand or care about Typo Negative? Again, the answer was no, but everything that everyone tells me that's so great about that band is what I find in the band Unto Others. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them.
No.
They used to be called Idle Hands, had to change it for legal reasons, and put out an album this year on Roadrunner called Strength, and it is amazing. Just 80s, a really cool mix of goth and metal. It's phenomenal. So that would be nearly making the team, but cut on the last day of practice.
You didn't send me that one, so I didn't get a chance to sample that one beforehand.
But the player that they got cut for is a legend who is definitely not playing his best games, but gets there because Neil Young and Crazy Horse returned with Barn.
Today no one cares, tomorrow no one shares, because they all will be gone, but the children of the Gonna run and hide from the fires and floods today's people have left behind.
Recently released. They literally built a barn to write, practice, and record the album called Barn, and it's kind of, he's probably my all-time favorite singer-songwriter, or just all-time favorite artist, and some of the time it's missing by a wide margin, but when he nails it, especially with Crazy Horse, it's just like hearing a loved one come out of a coma. you know it's never going to be the same, but it's good to hear their voice, right?
I actually had no idea this came out this year. Like,
yeah.
Neil Young, I guess it's a kind of a late release this year too. I think December was when it came out, so yeah, I guess that's how I missed it. But yeah, Neil Young is definitely one of those artists. He's still super prolific, and he is very hit or miss. But I think that the Crazy Horse stuff, I think, is the most consistent.
Agreed. I think he finally has someone on quality control. Like the guys are like, let's drop that. That's it's a little heavy-handed, Neil. But I love that. It probably wouldn't have gotten into my list were it by another name. But it's got to be in there. Yeah. Already one of my most listened. So. Let's see. Number 9, I have, for the first time on any of my lists, Mastodon, Hushed and Grim. I've never really gone in on Mastodon. They've had tracks here and there. I've inadvertently seen them a couple times. It's a double album. It's very mournful. It's not nearly as heavy as I expected. It's very proggy. Kind of crazy to think they've never put out a double album. But it's thematically, it's centered around the loss of their longtime manager, who apparently they were really close with, who died, I think, unexpectedly the year previous. So I dig it. It's a patient listen. It's definitely a long hike in the woods album for me this year. So love it.
Yeah, it's funny. Dylan and I have a history with Mastodon. Like, we both liked a lot of their earlier material, like Remission and Leviathan and Blood Mountain. There was a point where, like, I think Crack the Sky was the last one I listened to.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just like, okay. And then, like, I got out of my metal phase. So, like,
yeah,
they're a band I did not keep keep a tab on after I stopped really listening to metal. So when I saw this on your list, I was like, interesting pick here.
I was surprised, Justin, for real. I was really surprised. And it's not often that that realm of metal sneaks through, Like, I like the Gojira record, stuff like that. But same deal. I don't typically go in on metal as much as I do punk and hardcore, but this one just hit me in the right way. You know, I think it came out in the fall, which just, it sounded exactly like the day that was occurring when I first popped it in. So that was cool. So that would definitely make it.
I definitely had more metal stuff on my list this year overall. So dipping my toe back into metal a little bit more frequently. But yeah, it's cool to see that they've released something noteworthy. Yeah,
yes, certainly. This far on, it's hard to imagine many bands are this vibrant. So it was cool. It was cool. Yeah. In the complete opposite end of the spectrum, something that sad and mournful is Origami Angel, Gami Gang. Not sure how into them you are. Their previous album, I think, also made my top 10 list. If not, it would retroactively be high up on the list. But they're, DC, emo. I think emo is pretty reductive. Unbelievable musicians, and just so wistful and happy and pumped and positive. This is definitely a lift me up album that I've drawn from this year. Do you have any familiarity with them? You like them?
I just really know the name, like as far as being very involved in the, what is it, Dylan's dreaded fifth wave emo discourse that he hates seeing on the internet.
Yes. Yeah, I could do without the discourse as well, but this band is wonderful.
I think that discourse just comes from like its younger listeners who like just, found something that they think is super new, like emo in general. And then, of course, they want to talk about it. So
yeah. We
were all like that.
Yeah, I think about, I'm obviously a good 10 years older or so, but I think about when I first got into music, getting into Green Day and Nirvana and all this stuff, like, man, fuck Poison, Motley Crue, blah, blah, and there's defenders of that faith, so.
Let's move on to the next one here.
Yeah, where am I at? 7? Am I at 7?
Yeah, this would be 7, yep.
Yeah, 7, okay. 7, it's kind of interesting that it's under the name Converge, but Converge, Blood Moon, Part 1.
Blood moon ascends at night, last the cosmic eye, free of the chains that define our lives. It cuts through flesh and bone, into the glow of souls, gazing far and wide, devoid of hope.
You cut me open, but all that you find is under the surface.
That means there's going to be more of this, because I think it's exceptional. I've always liked the moodier, slower parts of, I guess, more of the latter day Converge albums, Axe to Fall. I mean, even You Fail Me, that era had some stuff. But to be able to pull off an album with this many amazing collaborators and do it remotely is insane to me. And the fact that Kurt Ballou made it sound the way it sounds, which is, incredibly warm and seamless, is just a testament to how talented a person he is. So I don't know, it's Converge. I think no matter what it turned out to be, it was going to be on my list. I consider myself a a lifelong fan at this point. I love following bands this late into their career. It's pretty stunning, I think.
And they're consistent. Like they've maintained a high quality of records going forward. It's like, so it's primarily a collaboration with Chelsea Wolfe, who is like a kind of doomy, gothy sort of musician. She's an interesting musician.
It's very interesting. It's been kind of not absorbed by, but has been kind of welcomed with open arms into like the extreme metal community, which is interesting because sonically, it's intense and it's heavy or foreboding, but it's not metallic. It's been cool to see some of that crossover, and I think Stephen Brodsky, the guitar work that he does on this is the best thing he's done in a long time. It's an exceptional work, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. For some reason, I just assumed it was only Converge and Chelsea Wolfe, but I did not realize that it's also like, Stephen Brodsky's in there.
And Chisholm, I think.
Yeah. Wow, okay, yeah.
It's cool. It's really cool. If you haven't listened, I mean, there's some really unexpected stuff on there. It's really
I've listened to the album, and it's very cool. Like, I definitely assume with the part 1 we're going to get more.
Yeah.
But I'm very looking forward to like hearing what else they come up with, because
me too.
It pushes both of their like outputs in new directions that they don't tend to go to very frequently. So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's a really cool one. Plus that album art's amazing.
Oh, as always, right? Let's see. Number 6, Chubby and the Gang, The Mutt's Nut. I've heard the term, what do they call it? Bandicap, when you have a name that kind of hinders you. The Mutt's Nuts would probably push me away, and if I wasn't already familiar with the band. Last year, I played, was it Speed Rules? I think was the name of their previous album. I can't remember, but
Speed Kills.
Kills. All right, there you go. Speed Kills, it rules, whatever.
Speed Kills rules.
Great UK band, also members of the Chisel, I think, which is a little more hard-edged. But this is just great. It's kind of like perfect mix of pub rock and hardcore, which I just think is awesome. If you ever wanted to hear like the 101ers as played by, I don't know, God's Hate, it would meet somewhere in this middle. No, it's just really, really fun. It's so full of personality. And it's very British, whatever that means. It just has a different vibe. There's a bit more fun, up front, which I really appreciate. I'm not the toughest dude, and I tend not to gravitate toward that stuff. So I just think they're a great band.
Yeah, they you're right though, with an album title like that, like if I wasn't already familiar with them, I'd be like, I'm not listening to that. Plus, like the artwork is just like goofy, cartoony.
It's aggressively colorful.
Yeah. But yeah, it is. It's a really fun record. And I loved that Chisel record too. Like that Chisel record ruled too.
Yes, it did. So that would be my overseas edition for this year. Number 5, though, we're if you have to have one hard record, so to speak, Regional Justice Center, Crime and Punishment. I think this is a masterpiece in the field in which they're working, and that's an incredibly prolific band. I thought the military gun stuff was cool, but the Regional Justice Center is just in the door and out before you even know what happened. It's just brutal. It's incredibly forceful, but lyrically, I think it's actually kind of touching in places. And I think having a personal narrative born into even the band as a project just has me a little more invested. But I think this album's the complete package. I mean, from the aesthetic, it's like some of the most gorgeous stuff Mark McCory's ever touched. But yeah, it rules. It's just brutal. It's brutal.
They've felt like a band who has been on the verge of like cracking that next level that like hardcore bands almost never cross.
Yep.
Like I'm not saying that like they're going to become or start sounding like somebody like Code Orange, like that, the way they changed their sound.
Yeah.
But like I feel like they're almost there to like that, right over the next ledge to like this iconic.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Isn't it wild too? Because I feel like earlier in the year, before I guess announcing they were disbanding, for bands like Regional Justice Center and Gulch to be on the tip of anybody's tongue, let alone everybody's tongue, is insane to me. Like these are incredibly aggressive bands.
What is speaking of Gulch? Why are they calling it quits?
I don't know. I think it's kind of like one of those brightest flames situation. You don't want to, when you're a band that intense and that extreme and that wild of a live experience, overstaying your welcome. I always say it's better to quit than to be asked to leave.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody would have asked them to leave this early, but that's how you leave a legacy, I guess.
True. Plus, there's still like the other projects, right? Like there's still Drain is associated, Tsunami's associated. It's like similar members, right?
Yeah. I think there's definitely some overlap, and that all of them will remain involved and probably do other new rad stuff. It's on, it's not within the same parameters of
right
Gulch, but they left us some scorchers. So if Regional Justice Center was to disband, they left us with what I consider to be their peak thus far. So love that record, love it. Number 4, I think this might be pretty obvious to anyone that's heard the record, but I'm also from Baltimore, so I think this might be my legal obligation to put on Turnstile, Glow On.
Blackout in the middle of the line, and now back down with the feeling, and I can lie. Won't be long until the end. Let the spotlight shine on me again. Blackout
Turnstile has owned the year. Just, a great record that's very, very brief and awesome. It's impossible not to have a good time listening to this record. And I think a lot of people needed that. And they were fortunate enough to have some really big, cool shows right at the time when that felt most appropriate. They just captured the attention of other worlds too. What was the show they were just on?
They were just on Seth Meyers.
Yes, yeah, Late Night with Seth Meyers.
Late Night.
Yeah, so what a coup for the world of hardcore,
What I was just saying about Regional Justice Center, like them being about to cross that precipice, Turnstile they are fully in that next stratosphere of like hardcore band.
Yeah.
And this record too, I think put them on a lot of people's radar that weren't necessarily paying attention to them. I'll admit I was aware of the band Turnstile, but they weren't a band that I was like actively listening to.
Yeah.
And I actually had a friend who also was not a huge Turnstile listener recommend the record to me right before it came out. Like they're releasing tracks individually for a while there, and I listened to it the first time and I was like, this is amazing. This is
yeah. And the thing I love a number of things about this record. It's not a record that I turn to every day. Sometimes, especially in the winter, I tend to go for more difficult things for whatever reason. But this record immediately sounds like something anyone could like.
Yeah.
Which is probably the most difficult thing to pull off in music. I don't know. It just has that instant classic feel. And it's like, what a great place to start for someone who is not familiar with this type of music,
Yeah. I'd say just fun is the number one feeling that I get listening to this record.
Yeah. Agreed. So couldn't get away with not having that as a Marylander on my list. And number 3, Fiddlehead, Between the Richness. This record, and they sat on it for a long time. I think it was probably ready last year, but it's flawless, much like their first one. I think they know not to overstay their welcome. They're in and out, and the songs are just perfect. It's like a perfect mix of early DC, Revolution Summer DC stuff, and something a little more Run for Cover Records. It's perfect. It's easily my favorite Pat Flynn project, and I'm a massive Have Heart fan. I like this more.
Yeah, this was one that was it was very hyped. It was one of those ones that people last year were talking about it because I think it was an early record this year. I think it came out pretty early in the year.
Yeah, I almost didn't include it because I just thought that I was like, oh, this is a 2020 record. But
yeah, and I think some songs had come out last year in advance, and so everybody was like, well, the record came out in May though, so they must have just been putting songs out.
Yeah, I think there was a 2-song single, both or a 2-song 7-inch of songs that ended up being on the record.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that Turnstile EP.
Yeah.
Which just ended up being songs from the record. You feel like you've lived with it a lot longer than you actually have. I just think Fiddlehead is, I don't know. You listen to them and then I've never seen them live, but I've seen plenty of live videos. They manage this really nostalgic, be it lyrically or sonically. It's this perfect mix of being in this this exact moment with everyone here as it is nostalgia for something else. And I think we all have that something else that we're picturing when we listen to Fiddlehead. Same with their last record, just love and loss and life. It's a real band. That's a real band. Glad they're around.
Yeah, definitely one of those bands that is just like, I feel like everyone who's heard them they love them,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
To be this artful with zero pretense is very difficult to do. They pull it off well.
It's true. There is like a craft to these records. But it does not come off as pretentious at all.
Not at all. Not at all. And number 2 could be seen in a completely opposite way. And this, to be honest, Justin, is the most surprised I've ever been by an album on my top 10 list. Because I have never gone in on this band, have zero idea as to why I listened to it this year. But The World is a Beautiful Place, and I'm no longer afraid to die. Illusory Walls. You talk about the emo discourse. That was one of those names, 10 or 12 years ago where I was like, no thanks, I'm okay. But I heard, and it wasn't even one of the singles, but I heard someone had put together a playlist, and they have a song on the album called Afraid to Die that is stunning. It stopped me in my tracks. It's not my most played album of the year because it's a lot to take in. It's very emotional, but it's absolutely beautiful. I think it has I don't want to speak for the singer because I'm not sure, but I think it has to do with sickness or loss, with regards to the singer. I'm not sure of that, so I'll stop quoting. Yeah. But it's an amazing record, Justin. I'd never gone in on them. I've kind of started to retroactively because this one floored me. So, it's probably the most emotional record I've listened to this year, too.
This was a surprise to me on your list, too, because I was just like, Adam didn't strike me as someone who listened to this band. Like,
didn't strike me that way either.
I remember when they were new. Like, I remember when the very first, EP and, it was probably technically a demo, but, I remember it was, Formlessness, I think is what it's called, came out.
Harmlessness?
And then the Josh is Dead EP, I remember at the time being this band's interesting, but then they never hooked me long enough to follow through with any of their records.
Yeah.
And then it became I missed the boat on them, and it was talk about the emo discourse. They were the last. Yep. We're on emo discourse revival if we're really thinking about it, but. Yeah, this one, I remember when it came out, I thought I saw it in a strange place. It was on the Death Wish distro or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it's technically an Epitaph record, but it popped up in unique spots that they normally don't.
Yeah, and I think that's probably how I came across it. It wouldn't be my normal in my normal avenues. But there's something about this too that adds a dash. I think the production's a little more crisp. the last 2 songs on the album are over a half an hour combined. So it's like it's an endurance test in theory, but I haven't stopped playing it, and it still feels like a quick listen. There's a bit more. There's a hint of Circus Survive vibes in here, and that's a band that I'm a massive fan of.
Okay.
Just a little bit more intricate than what they've put out before. And there's a bit more up tempo stuff. So yeah, it's a big surprise, but this album rules, and I'm super glad I took a chance on them. But my number one, and it's been my number one since I heard it, is This Place You Know by One Step Closer. Pennsylvania. Phenomenal melodic hardcore, just incredibly anthemic. Kind of has, again, to bring them up, Have Heart. It kind of has some Have Heart vibes. With, it doesn't rewrite the rule book. It doesn't even necessarily do anything entirely new, but it's so incredibly passionate and perfectly executed. It's just, this is chef's kiss hardcore for me. It's this is my wheelhouse defined.
Yeah, this is definitely one that's in my top 20, probably top 25, awesome. Something along those lines. Like listening to it, like the second I heard it, I was like, well, even then, like the last thing they put out was like an EP, right?
Yes. Yeah, that was, so their debut was an EP, I think 5 songs. And then they put out, like a 2-song single, kind of as to bridge the gap. And it featured an earlier version of one of the songs on this, if I'm not mistaken.
There was, it was like Promo 2020.
Yes.
Was what little thing they put out. And when that came out, I listened to those songs and I was like, oh, put the record out now.
I
wanted to hear it immediately.
Yeah.
And so this was one that it was like on my anticipated list for sure this year. I was like, oh, when that thing comes out, it's going to be so good.
Yep.
And it is. It's
it
an incredible record.
Yeah.
I get.
They do some more. They should. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and they do a couple, a couple daring things just sprinkled in there. It's not to overwhelm the record or scare off the hardcore dudes.
Yeah.
But they have a bit more nuance, a little drama. Yeah, it's amazing. It's just amazing. I think Be Well was my record of the year last year, and it scratches a similar itch, but it's such a step up for this band. They rule.
Yeah, I get like little kind of like hints of like Shai Hulud in there too. Like
ooh,
that.
I like that.
Like there's that Shai Hulud has this feeling in all of their records. It's like I've always called it kind of like a melancholy to their style of hardcore.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's definitely in a more like emotive form of hardcore.
Yes.
Than but you wouldn't call it full on emo or even emo core. I mean, maybe you'd call it emo core, but so I always thought like a less metallic Shai Hulud with this record.
I like that. That's an interesting take. Yeah, and I agree. There's they kind of lean in a bunch of directions without ever like collapsing into one corner. It's not it's not fully resigned. It's not nihilistic. It's not just one thing. And it's hopeful. It's thoughtful. And these are young people. And I say that as as a 42-year-old. I love this stuff, and I can be moved. The fact that I can be moved by someone half my age. Only in the beginning of what I hope is a really long career for this band. I think they could kind of occupy a similar territory as, say, like a Touche Amore. Where, like, they continue to honor their roots, but really branch out and do some cool stuff. I think as long as they stick together, band like them and someone like Anxious, I think there's some crossover there. The record they have coming out next month, we might be talking about that next December too. So.
Well, I'm gonna have to throw that on the list now because I have a running list of like upcoming releases to pay attention to that whenever they do come out.
Ooh, so, you're gonna have to send that to me. I need to do that too.
It's not like it's pretty small right now. I guess nobody's wanted to really announce stuff in the very end of the year, but February's stacking up pretty good so far. So
nice.
I'll have to throw that Anxious one on there just to see.
Yeah. I think it's the end of. It's like a month from today. Technically.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice.
And I'll say only to call back to one of our. I think it was the pop punk bracket. And I know people have their problems with the pop punk. But I so wanted it to be in this list, Justin, but it just was not the album. The latest AFI, Bodies.
I kept trying to keep it on my list for the year. Like, it was one of those ones where I was just like, no, I'll leave it towards the bottom. It'll still be good. And it just got pushed off. It was, I wouldn't say it's not a bad record.
No, not at all.
And I like a lot of the
AFI.
And I like a lot of the chances they took on it. They definitely were going in a different direction with that album, but
very LA vibes.
Yeah. But I guess ultimately like the hooks weren't there for this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one I was like fighting to keep it on all year. But my band, who I'm a lifelong fan of, Coheed Cambria, is putting out a record next year too, and the first two songs are very proggy Coheed. So
yes,
I'm wondering what that's going to look like, if that's gonna be on that.
Will it be part of the story arc, or are they done?
I think it is, because I think the last record was part of it. Because they did that one record that wasn't included.
And that was the only one, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Was the song Shoulders? Was that what it was called? Shoulders? Yeah. I love that song.
And that should be on the new record.
Okay.
I don't have a date for it. They're playing near me. They're supposed to play near me in the not too distant future. So I'm hoping that actually happens and I can go check them out. But
yeah, for sure. I love Coheed too. I'm right there with you.
Oh, okay, yeah. They're one of those bands though too, where I'm like, will this one be the one that doesn't make my list at the end of the year? You never know.
Yeah.
A band this far into their career, but we're trying now to guess next year's stuff. So that's.
I know. Yeah, I'm not really sure what the big slated releases are for next year.
I don't think anybody does.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? I always wanted to ask you this with regards to like the the end of year lists. I can't remember who came up with the term, but they called they're saying they ranked their top 5 memory hold albums of the years where it came and went without so much as a mention.
Yeah.
I feel like there are some bands that put out albums. You're like, oh my gosh, you're right. They did put out an album this year,
Yeah, that definitely happens. And you'll listen to it, and it just, whatever it is, it doesn't like maybe grab you the way it needs to or normally would. Yeah, there's definitely been records where it's like, oh my God, I completely forgot about that record.
Yeah, or like even culturally, it gets forgotten. You know, it's very strange.
Yeah.
Like I would look the other day and I was like, Kings of Leon put out a record this year? What? What? You know, like I'm happy to not know about that, but
Right.
man, wow. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's
Yeah,
funny.
there was something I was looking at that I was like, they've our good friend Corey, who's been on the show a bunch of times, he calls it whenever a band that has been around for way longer than you thought they were
Mhm.
is like still putting out new music. He always says the world has never not needed Papa Roach. Like those kind of bands, you know, like
yeah.
who's listening to the new Godsmack records, you know, like
I went in. It's funny you say that because the other day, don't know how I got there, but I ended up checking in with the band Sponge. Remember them?
yeah.
Never stopped. Justin, never stopped. There's no real big gaps in their discography. They put out an album this year. Not my thing. And I looked at their social media and it'll be like them playing in a bar and there'll be like 18 likes on a picture. And I'm like, they don't seem to mind. They just love doing it. But how is this possible?
That's
How?
amazing. Like those
It
bands
makes me
that,
happy in a way.
you know, is The Offspring one of those? No, because people were kind of aware when The Offspring put out a record. They don't listen to them, but they know there's going to be one.
Yes. Apparently it was dreadful, and I'll tell you, I forced myself to listen. They have a song on the newest album called We Don't Have Sex Anymore. I don't know if you've heard this.
I forced myself to listen to this album too.
Oh, it's embarrassing, isn't it?
You know
Yeah.
why? I listened to it because they kicked their drummer out because he refused to get vaccinated, and
I
he
did hear that. I was kind of stoked that they went so
I was
hard
like,
on-
wow, they really
Yeah.
like made him go home. That's
Yeah.
wild. Because he was trying to pull that like my doctor said I don't have to was basically that guy's defense. And it was just like, all right, Offspring. I mean, I get it. One of them's like a molecular biologist or something like that. So
Yeah.
like, they're smart guys.
Very.
So I was like, all right, I'm going to give your record a listen because you did something that I really respect for, you know. And then I'm like, too bad I don't like the album.
Yeah. You're right. Things we no longer need. The Offspring never made sense to me, or I shouldn't say that. They never clicked for me, but there are any bands, sorry, if you need to go, let me know. I have, always meaning to ask, are there bands that you have tried and tried and tried and it never works? I said that at the beginning on Typo Negative, like people whose taste I really respect just gush about that band, and it makes no sense to me at all. Like, totally over my head.
I have one notable one. The Replacements.
Wow, Biggie.
So many people love that band. People I know personally that love that band, and I've heard songs I liked.
Yes,
but I've listened to multiple albums, and I've been like, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. I can't do it.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? I read, what's the book? The big, Our Band Could Be Your Life.
Yeah.
I remember reading that very early on, and every band sounds like they should be your favorite band, and I really tried with a lot of them. The Replacements, though, stuck for me.
Yeah.
Because Husker Du is kind of that band for me. I'm like,
oh, okay.
I really like a lot of the stuff. Doesn't mean anything to me emotionally at all.
And you know what? Another one, maybe it's because I've never given them enough time, is Dinosaur Jr.
I can see that.
I've never tried to listen to one of their records, so like maybe that's on me. But every song I've heard, I'm just like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, they're a band that like I certainly dig some of their stuff, but I usually have to have some sort of emotional connection. It just doesn't resonate in that way for me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, it kind of sounds like Sonic Youth and Neil Young hanging out.
Yeah.
Which is cool, but yeah, not one of my favorites either.
Oh, we should probably end this before we get in trouble and tell everybody what our bad taste in music. But thank you so much for doing this again with us this year, and we'll definitely have you back on in the future.
Right on. Thank you, Justin.